Alright, we are recording, yay, for chapter 3 of The Search for Spock in this. So it starts with Carol and Chapel are on Space Lab, on Space Lab, to identify the bodies, which each time they open up the stasis pod and Carol looks at the faces, well, I mean, she's grieving for them, so she's also talking about them. She's not just identifying them as is necessary for the record, but is also describing them, both for Chapel to hear, but also for it to be in the recording. And it's kind of neat, because we do get some more information. And there is also that element of getting to know Carol a bit better with how she... I mean, it is a very natural way to grieve, but it still is to actually include it. You know, it is a choice. Plenty of people would write a story and forget to do so. To have these small eulogies here. Small and private eulogies, too. We also do get an explanation that we already would have understood from Wrath of Khan, but it is explicitly stated here. Deltans can will themselves to die, Chapel said, if they find themselves in intolerable conditions. I think she wouldn't have felt any pain. Because when Carol's looking at Zenaida, I think that's how I decided to pronounce her name. Don't know if I'm right. But in any case, looking at her, Carol comments about McCoy doesn't know why she died, and Chapel provides that explanation. The last one she looks at is Vance, and she does have a hard time doing it. Her calm voice suddenly broke. Oh, damn, Chris. Now I have to believe he's dead. Chris Chapel turned off the recorder, went to Carol, and put her arms around her while she cried. I know, Chris said. I understand. Which she would, because she would have had the same experience looking at Spock's body, which... I don't know between her and Bones who would have handled putting his body in stasis, and potentially they may have done some level of autopsy just to like confirm the obvious, but still to confirm it. But I could believe there would be some preparation. It would be one of those two. And I think it would be a question of, would Chapel have said to McCoy, I'm helping? Because I think he would not even offer to her for her to be involved. But if she told him she was going to help, he would never deny her. Because he knew about and would have respected her feelings towards Spock. So while Carol and Chapel are doing that, Savick and David are going to beam down into the Genesis cave. Lieutenant, the cadet at the transporter controls, said hesitantly, I can't find a clear place to beam you to. What? David said. It's full of open spaces in there. But no, it's stuff is filling up. Which, by the way, one thing that just occurred to me now as I'm reading this. Because of the situation the Enterprise is in, the Grissom actually, assuming it came from somewhere else and not just having its own crew on board, should have actually brought relief crew for the Enterprise, because there's way too many cadets on there. The training mission is over. They need more experienced personnel there. So yeah, even just a handful to help bolster their ranks and morale even would have been good. They wouldn't necessarily need officers, like they don't need to replace Spock yet. That can wait until you get back to the Enterprise, but something to help with relieving the cadets. So anyway, David and the cadet are looking around and trying to find a spot, finally find one. And Savick's like, okay, beam me down there. David's like, wait, we're going down. And she's like, no, I'm going down there. And you're either going to be beaming you right back up, or I'm going to open up, clear a space, and then you come down. She found herself in a very small clearing left by the random arrangement of a tangled mass of undergrowth. Vines completely filled the tunnel in which Dr. Marcus and her team had hidden the Genesis records. Savick to Enterprise, I've reached the surface. David, the floor has grown into the tunnels and filled them. Is this what you intended? No, not at all. But like I told you, things always happen that you don't expect. I'm coming down. Wait a moment, I will clear a place for you. First she tried to push aside the beautiful flowering tendrils, but they sprang back into place. In trying to move them, she crushed some of the stems and blossoms. The damaged foliage released a pungent and entrancing scent. More does come of that. Yes, more does come of that. So one thing that I have an issue with here is where are they looking, I guess, is fundamentally it. Because, like, yes, it's full of empty spaces, but it still has to be. Doesn't matter. You can't have a plant grow to be larger than the mass it's consuming to grow. But it might just be that it's only where Starfleet had mined out tunnels. Might be that that's the only place that they can, in fact, beam in. That's possible. I'm okay with that. Yeah. We do get a little bit more because it's also David's like, wow, it's amazing that they're growing like this, even under artificial lighting. And Saavik doesn't end up saying it, but just points out that, dude, even the star, which is no longer a star, even that's artificial light. But it says it's the mass of reacting gases was held to the proper density by magnetic fields and kept in place by stress fields. So presumably then it is not a real star, despite it being described as a variable star in the previous book. It is just plasma floating there that is being kept heated and contained such that it emulates a star, and they are then just every 12 hours or so. And this is actually not unreasonable. If you have it like in some sort of ball that you would, when you want it lit up, you would just press it down, but then when you want it to turn off, you would expand it out so it would cool down, and you can just do that back and forth to control the light. Yeah, there's a mention that because he did intentionally make, and it is David who actually designed these vines. He intentionally made it so that when he crushed it up, it would release a enjoyable scent. And also, in a couple months, they'll have berries that will make great wine, he says. This comes up later as well. But she starts using the phaser to clear out more area, and even starts using like a scalpel to remove just the undergrowth that has gripped the boxes that things are in that they need. As she finished, David approached. He put his arms around her from behind and rubbed the leaves together between his hands. The refreshing perfume rose up around her face. Wouldn't you like to try some wine that tasted like these smell? Saavik holstered her phaser and took David's hands between her own. She stroked the back of his hands with her fingers and grasped his wrists, feeling the cool throb of his pulse. The scent requires nothing more, she said. It's complete in itself. It is perfect, very much like its designer. It's a bit much, but still, I do like this moment of intimacy between them. Even if that line is, oh God, do we really need that? It's sappy, but anyway. It also, there's a larger context here that will be revealed later that may also help explain some of this. She wanted nothing more than to respond to his caress. Her communicator beeped. I'd never designed a bird that made a silly noise like that, David whispered in Saavik's ear. Must have been my mother. She was never very good at music. Let's ignore it. It would merely make more silly noises, she said, and when it stopped, a whole flock of its comrades would come looking for it, accompanied by a whole flock of cadets playing at being security officers. She kissed him quickly and pulled out her communicator. See, that I like. I like that better than just, perfect like its creator. But this is, no, that I like this back and forth. I appreciate it. So does talk with Kirk on the Enterprise, who's like, good, get the documents up, and then we need you to come up. But David doesn't really like this. I have an idea. Let's let him wait. Let's blast a trail to the interior and see what's going on there. Saavik put her hand on her phaser and very nearly drew it. She was so tempted by his invitation that the strength of her desire shocked her. I would like that very much, she said. Great, let's go. What I would like is very far from what I must do. And this... Okay, this devolves. He insults her by calling her indoctrinated in the military mind. He was like, oh, you're just like all Starfleet. It's... The funny thing is that even when I was reading this, it seemed off. Because, yeah, he's kind of thinking that way, but I would never expect him to turn on Saavik like that, and certainly not this quickly. It's like, dude, I mean, you are being irresponsible. They need to go up. There is a schedule to be kept. So it had seemed odd. Things get kind of explained later. Okay. Saavik then... Well, he dives for her phaser and tries to get it. First, kind of playfully, and she stops it. He then tries more seriously, and apparently Sulu has been teaching her self-defense methods that she is adept at, and kind of grabs his wrist, and he tries to like dig fingernails with his free hand into her fingers, but she just twists it all the more to stop that. He had it coming. But anyway, when Kirk calls again. Will you get a move on, Lieutenant? Immediately, Admiral, the Jess records are clear to foliage. The transporter beam may lock on to them now. Preparing to beam up. But it's also... I'm thinking... Was it? No, it must be a little later. Because it's also mentioned, Saavik mentions to him about, where is that? Okay, it must have been a little earlier then. About her going... Okay, no, it was earlier than this. I forgot where it was. She did share that she's going to the Grissom, which pisses him off to no end. Not just because... separating him and Saavik, which that's what he that's why he thinks Kirk has had asked her to volunteer. That's what he's thinking, along with just cutting them out. We do get a different explanation later that makes a lot more sense, but David is hot-headed at the moment, more so than usual. But with the communicator open, think you can cut me out of my own project, do you filthy warmonger? David shouted before Saavik could close the channel. David, what are you talking about? Kirk's tone was hurt and surprised. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. She snaps it close and places it back on her belt. Okay, so at this point, the stuff is beamed up. They're still there. And she is still holding him, by the way. And she now has to walk over to try to find, because, I don't remember. The phaser went free. Flew away. So she has to go and pick that up now. And when getting there, she finds that the vines have kind of already started gripping it, which it does state later. She's encountered other species of vine that can also grip things very quickly, but still it's like, a little weird. But she does pick that up, but she's starting, like she's losing her balance and such, and she actually falls to her knees even. And so David doesn't seem as impacted by this, but when they are eventually beamed up, they were actually holding hands, and it also took them a little bit to get beamed up because they needed all the boxes and such cleared away from the transport pad first. David and Saavik were holding hands. Charming, I'm sure, Kirk thought, but hardly the place or time, and damned foolish to do while being transported. Lucky neither had lost an arm. I take it you have something to say to me, young man, and yeah. She is, like, they start arguing when she's, like, tuned out from it for a bit, and she initially just wants to blame it on having gone so many days without sleep. Although last night she did get some sleep. Well, not all the night. Anyway, but it's still, she's just attributing what was going on to that. But it's like I already was figuring with the scent and such. Just when it was mentioned, it's like this might be a problem, and it does eventually get revealed that yes, it was. I'll wait until later in the story though, when it is in fact confirmed. But it is. She then pipes up and is like, "Can I go to my quarter? Am I dismissed to go to my quarters and get ready to transport over to the Grissom?" And Kirk, does dismiss her. She gets there, still has the phaser, and when looking at it, finds there's actually some remnants of the vines on there. So she does. Yeah, she crushes it, and again, the dazzling scent, the fragrance twined around her like tendrils around her phaser. Dizziness hit her. Savick jerked the leaf away. She gazed at it, frowning. She put it aside, went to the synthesizer panel, and requested the ship's computer to send her a sampling envelope. When it appeared, she swept together all the bits of David's vine. Repressing the wish to inhale their redolent essence, she sealed it within the clear plastic. So yeah, she knows something is off. Something is up. Okay. So then we get the whole Kirk David thing. They're back and forth, which David is not as understanding as in not listening as he should, but still we do get the explanation from Kirk. I'll be honest with you, David, I was hoping you'd stay on board the Enterprise. I wanted a chance to talk to you. I can't make up for all the years that I didn't know you. No, David said coldly, you can't. Taken aback by David's reaction, Jim said, whether you like it or not, I am your father. You can't spend 20 years ignoring my existence. David, I didn't. And just waltz in and expect me to shower you with filial piety. It's like, that's very unfair. And I'm willing to attribute this to a combination of what the Vines were doing and David is being an idiot. But he knows that Kirk had no knowledge of him until, well, had no knowledge of the relationship until, like, 2 days ago, so. But it's also, he's probably upset because the whole he couldn't explore the Genesis cave, either. But it is basic, they do talk about it, and Kirk, he's not necessarily, he doesn't want to lose his son, he wants to be able to spend some time with him, but it's like, I mean, he even explains, I figured when Carol said she wasn't going to go to the Grissom, it applied to you as well. I'm sorry, but if you want to go, sure. He's not going to stop him. He just figured, I figured your mother was making the decision. You just go along with her. And he was kind of like, well, you still should talk to me. It's like, sorry, you're going. I didn't really want that either, but yeah, sure. He does go and talk to his mother before leaving, and she does explain the whole that she was selfish. There it is. There's one reason I never told you Jim Kirk is your father, David. There are a lot of reasons, but the main one was selfish. I don't understand. I was afraid that if you found out that your father was a starship captain, you'd be off on the next ship, flying around the galaxy, and never see you again. She sighed. I told Jim, I want you in my world, not in his, but I should have let you make the decision. And he's kind of mocking that there's no way I'd ever join Starfleet. That's not how my brain works. Nope, not happening. And there's also a little bit about the whole, you've met your father and you're about to go off on a starship. Well, yeah, but it's not his starship. That doesn't make a big difference to her. I mean, it's like, come on, David. Still. Before leaving, though, he does give her something. I sold this for you when nobody was looking. He handed her the map of the second phase of Genesis. After drawing the map of the ecosystem for Regulus 1, Vance Madison had made a copy for each member of the team. So they were collecting together everything about Genesis to beam up to... Actually, not sure if it would be... Well, no, yeah, it was beamed onto the Enterprise, but I guess it would be transferred over to Grissom. Or maybe it's just coming back to Earth. But either way, it's still... He pulled that out of there, which... My shaking of the head is like, I mean, he shouldn't have needed to steal it. So, yeah. It isn't as though Starfleet has a right to this. It's more of a, we need to get the situation under control kind of thing, so we're doing that. More so like end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, with the whole, top men, and it's just we're securing it when no one will ever find it. It's more that kind of thing than we're actually taking control of everything. Plus, that technically wasn't the military. But anyhow. So now Saavik, who is always on time, always very punctual, gets to the transporter room before beaming over to the Grissom. She starts hearing Spock's voice again. But it's a bit more involved. Saavik. She clapped her hands over her ears. The voice spoke in Vulcan, using a Vulcan form of address. Saavik, why did you leave me on Genesis? The voice was audible only to her. It was not a joke. Mr. Spock, she whispered, why are you not at peace? I watched over you, and I sent your body into the new world. I thought that would please you. She then starts hearing people outside the corridor. So she suspected it was a joke because she first heard something and was like, why would somebody be mimicking Spock's voice near her like that? And she's even thinking about, I know jokes can be cruel, but it's normally a benign cruelty. What the hell? But it goes on a little bit. This time she did feel as if she were going mad. Saavik had experienced mind meld several times during her life, most often with Spock. The touch of his mind was the first civilized experience she had ever had. The touch of a mind was unique. It was impossible to mistake the mind of a person one had touched for that of any other sentient being, strange or familiar. Yet the voice Saavik had felt, the consciousness that had just cried out to her, had felt like Mr. Spock's, which it could not have been. So yeah, she's definitely getting weirded out by this. Later on, there's even a mention when she's thinking about it some more that I used to believe in ghosts, and then I stopped because I'm not a kid. What the hell's going on here? There seems to be ghosts. When she's on Grissom is when she's thinking about this, because she tries to open her mind to it, and it's like, not here. Well, I guess the Enterprise is haunted. And that is kind of what she does actually conclude, that it's the Enterprise that's haunted. Anyway. Oh, yeah, this line. Hang on, let me just... Okay, I think everything left is just his things highlighted. So she's there, Kirk is there, Captain of the Grissom is there, and David arrives eventually. Kirk turned to Saavik and, to her surprise, extended his hand to her. She took it gingerly. Good luck, Lieutenant. Take care of my son. Aye, sir, she said, and wondered how many layers a human being accustomed to the ambiguities and little jokes of standard would find in his order. Actually, that's true. Has it been... Well, yes, she would have been able to conclude from before the encounter in the corridor that Kirk knows. But yeah, it's... Yeah. When Kirk also tries to give his hand to David, David does take it, but not so comfortable. But then Kirk does pull him in to give him a hug. Well, specifically a bear hug. And he's still a little uncomfortable, but yeah. But yeah. Oh yeah, I don't think I even put that in here. Oh well, that's fine. After they leave, Kirk heads to sickbay to talk to Bones. Just to... Because his behavior was odd the night before. But I did like this line. Odd, McCoy chuckled. I'm not surprised. But, you didn't act drunk. I didn't, McCoy exclaimed all too heartily. I must be out of practice. Thank you, Bones. So we have Kirk stating he didn't act drunk. Chapel had stated there wasn't any alcohol in the system. Yeah, he's definitely getting messed up by having Spock in there too. But it's also, I am now wondering how much is it Is it like Spock is reaching out from McCoy, and that's what Saavik is hearing because she's sensitive to Spock being part Vulcan and potentially also from those mind melts? Or is it something else? But then it's also what's going to happen with the body. I mean, don't know. Going to be interesting to continue reading though. So now she's on the Grissom, and she decides to head to the science lab, main laboratory, and stop. Saavik entered the main laboratory and stopped short. Before her stood a being like a column of rippled crystal. Saavik had never met a Glaziver, Glaezivier. Before, they were very rare. They intended and planned to be extinct within 100 standard years. Their planet had been destroyed in the nova of its star. They possessed such strong ties to their world that they never found another on which they felt anything but alien, and so they disbanded, scattered throughout the Federation and perhaps even beyond. It occurred to Saavik that if Genesis could be programmed to copy their lost world closely enough, they might change their collective decision to die. If they possessed a world to return to, they might choose to live. That's neat. I like that. We'll see where this goes. Obviously Genesis is a failure, but still, this is interesting. Also, I just like that this is a concept in Star Trek. I don't know if even with, because I don't pay attention to the stuff that's newer, the non-broadcast Trek. I don't know if they have any species that are like that, but I want to say in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, there is a crystalline being, but is given like a normal humanish face, so is anthropomorphized. This, it's not clear. But that is something in theory you could do today. Yeah. You're well-mannered for an opaque being. It said, I'm not trying to pronounce the name. Its voice was like a cymbalin. If you can pronounce my name, you may use it. It spoke a beautiful word like a song which Saavik reproduced as best she could. Not bad, he said. You may call me that if you like. I prefer it to Fred. Fred? One of my co-workers fancies that my name sounds like a phrase of Chopin's. It's like, okay. And later on, there's a mention because normally the species has a reputation for being very formal and standoffish. Saavik found it quite interesting that the being had held to formality during their introductions, but spoke very casually otherwise. It was very easy to think of it as Fred. I wanted to also, I didn't even highlight that. I just wanted to read it because it's kind of funny. That's a fair name, Fred. But it was, so he made a deal with her, which was basically, can you work and talk at the same time? Yeah, cool. We'll do the scans now, because looking at the samples of the vines, but tell me everything about Genesis. I want to know. So it's like, cool, fair trade. Alright, so now she has gone to her quarters, which she has her own cabin. So does David, and he's actually next door. He comes over. They're talking, and she is not happy. It does get explained, though. And he thinks it's because he tried to take her phaser earlier. And he does apologize for that, but there's a little bit more. You know that I do... This is her talking. You know that I do not use recreational drugs. Even if I did, I was on duty when we beamed down to the Genesis cave. How could you not warn me? Saavik, what are you talking about? Saavik was prepared for a laugh and a claim of a little joke. She was not prepared for deliberate obtuseness. She handed him the printout. He scanned it. Interesting organic makeup. What is it? You should know. You designed it. I never did. Never saw the set of molecules before in my life. So what continues from here... well, yeah, I'll read the rest of this, because it's... she does admit that she was very tempted to agree with him and start exploring the Genesis cave. I came very close to it, Saavik said. The active ingredient in those vines is a narcotic. I designed it so you could brew tea out of the leaves if you wanted. I put a lot of caffeine in it, that's all. Savick could see the resemblance between the molecule in question and caffeine, but it had gone through considerable mutation to become what it was. I think you would not want to brew tea out of this plant, Savick said, or make wine of its fruit. You never know, David said. Savick raised one eyebrow. Just kidding, David said. But, yeah, so the vines had indeed mutated. Cool, this will actually be a short video. They had indeed mutated, and had turned the perfume into a narcotic that was infecting both of them. So that, I think, explains David being so set off, including arguing with Kirk. And also, obviously, it explains Savick losing strength in her legs and falling down and feeling dizzy and all that. That makes sense. But it is also another sign along with the rapid overgrowth, which doesn't make much sense. But it does help set up the whole things are not going how you think they will on the Genesis planet. Which, by the way, I also just want to mention something else that occurred to me while I was reading it. If Genesis were real and they actually did the Regulus One thing, there was no way they would not be like, yeah, we're going to watch this for years before moving on to a planet. There's no way. Because, I mean, the plants were put there. They didn't just, well, no, some of it was put there, but they do then make references here about actually, they engineered even the animal life, which, that seems a little odd, but regardless, it's, still, they would not just leave it. I mean, if nothing else, they would have to observe it long enough just to see if it is able to reproduce, to see what subsequent generations are. Because it would really suck if it's like, hey, we came up with this wonderful, beautiful system that lasts for one generation or 2 generations, then it mutates so much that it's useless. Which is technically possible. So yeah, it is just, I get it. That is to serve the story. I get that. I'm just saying that as, yeah, it's easy enough for me to put that aside. I'm just saying it as a, when I actually start thinking about how this would work, you would be spending more time on it. But that's, we need to get to Spock, we can't have spent the years, really, that it was with the Phase 2, the cave, so. Alright, let me just quickly see. Okay, looks like we are following David and Savick on Grissom at the start. Enterprise is going to be able to head back to Earth soon. So we'll have their arrival there, which that's where the movie starts. So it is interesting that was technically still just in like a prologue to the movie. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how some of that ends up going, especially as Bones gets worse. And people figure out what's going on. As I said in the previous chapter, hopefully Nurse Chapel's going to be involved. Well, Dr. Chapel. It'll also be interesting to see how the Savick David relationship will develop now that they're on Grissom, so they're away from the parents. But also that they now have this mission with the Genesis planet. Seeing how some of that evolves. And of course, it might not be in the next chapter that the Klingons show up. That, if I'm remembering, it is Commander Krug. That he shows up to get the information. I could believe that's not in this next chapter, but will be the one after. It depends. Because like him getting that information is when, okay, things are getting real here. As far as now, the plot has a strict timeline to it. Things are progressing. But I could believe that this next chapter, if it is, it's going to be Grissom getting used to being around Genesis and the Enterprise getting home and stuff on Earth. It's like, I can believe, okay, we're going to get another rest period with that, and then we'll get to, okay, Klingons are moving. We have to get the humans moving too. All right, so we'll see. All right, see you next time.